This is Attorney Trey Harrell. I've been dealing with insurance companies my entire life, whether it's working for them or fighting against them. So if you've been injured in an accident and the insurance company is giving you the runaround, don't delay. Call 636-TREY, or you can find us online at attorneyharrell.com. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or whenever you'd like it to be. This is Harrell Squared. It's Trey Harrell,
and
along
Bobby
with
Harrell, former House Speaker, Speaker of the South Carolina House of Representatives, with my favorite son, the lawyer.
There you go, favorite son. You know, it's good. So that means there's no other ones out there, right?
Well, good point.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. No, we're just kidding. Welcome to Harrell Squared. We are so glad that you joined us today. We really appreciate it. We got some great stuff to talk about. We've got South Carolina playing Georgia with a good little Georgia story that I think will be entertaining. We've got Georgia Tech and Clemson to talk about. We've got the Murdaugh bond hearing. And if we have time, we'll even get into Bob Woodward's book. So it ought to be a good show, so we appreciate you joining us. But let's just...
Trey Harrell did an incredible job picking topics. I appreciate your emailing them to me just last night.
There you go. There you go. Well, let's just jump right into it. Let's start off with the South Carolina-Georgia game. The line on it is 31.5 points. All right?
And the news is so bad that yesterday morning in the Post and Courier, the story they had to write about the Gamecocks was how great we were 10 years ago when we beat them.
You know, Melvin Ingram's touchdown. I remember
Right.
that so vividly.
Me
I was
too.
there, and that was also the game. I'm pretty sure that's the game when Jasper Brinkley made an interception at the end of the game to seal the game. And I can remember sitting... You had gotten me tickets for that game, you know, through
Right.
speaker tickets
Right.
through that game. So they were really good seats.
No. Just had gotten you tickets.
Yeah, you got me tickets. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But we had gotten tickets for that game, and we were very close to the field, and I just remember that so vividly, and that was such a great feeling to be there, 10 years ago. But that was...
Yeah, I've been to Athens when we've won. I've been to Athens when we've lost. When we lose, unfortunately, more than we've won, particularly there. But when we have won in Athens, that night after and that trip back home, it is just fabulous.
Yeah.
When we lose, it is the most miserable place on the planet next to Clemson to be when we lose.
Certainly. And Athens is such a great college town. It's one of the greatest college towns out there because, that's all there really is
That's
there.
it. That's all it is.
It's such a great place to be, and when you're in the catbird seat, it is. Well,
it's like Stark Vegas, only with class.
Yeah, and I've never been there. And I can't wait till we get to talk about those games later. But I've never been to Stark Vegas, but that's on the bucket list. But let's dive into the game. Let's talk about some big news that came out of Columbia this week. With that USC at Williams-Brice is now initiating a mask mandate.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm pretty disappointed. It's an outdoor venue. I understand people's concern, but the biggest question I have about mask mandates, if you've been vaccinated, you are 11 times less likely to die in the hospital than if you haven't been, if you contract COVID. You're 10 times less likely to even contract it to begin with, and the vast majority of the cases don't go to the hospital. The mask mandates are not about protecting those of us who are vaccinated. It's about protecting people who don't want to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Now, the at-risk populations, older folks and stuff like that, I get that. You're going somewhere where those folks are, maybe like the grocery store or something like that. Okay, I get that. But most places that you would go, anywhere in Charleston, anywhere in Columbia, you ought to be able to decide, okay, I'm vaccinated, I don't need a mask, I'm not going to wear it. Somebody else is not vaccinated, they need to decide, do they want to wear a mask or not wear a mask at the risk of going into the hospital and having a very bad outcome. I just don't think the government ought to be telling us this. I think once you've gotten your vaccine, you ought to make your own decision.
And my issue with the mask mandates that go out in a lot of these places are, prime example, in the rule at the stadium is if you have a drink in your hand, you don't have to have your mask on.
Right.
So I just buy a beer or soda and walk around with it the whole time, and I'm not wearing a mask. That still doesn't prevent whatever it is.
Or if you're eating. And I plan to have a little bag full of lollipops with me
there you go.
at the game.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be eating when I go. May not make it for this game coming up, but when I go, I'm going to have a whole pack of lollipops with me as long as this mask mandate's there. Then I'll be eating the whole game.
The whole game. And so it's one of those things. And I agree with your sentiment about the vaccine. If you are able to get vaccinated, you need to be vaccinated. Now,
absolutely.
I heard
people do it.
Yep, I heard on Friday morning on WTMA, I heard Nancy Mace talk about her experience with COVID and her issues with COVID, and she made a very good point in saying that please consult with your doctor, talk to your doctor, let your doctor guide the way with it, understand what's going on, go get the information, and if you can get vaccinated, get vaccinated. It's just one of those things that you just should do.
A lot of people were saying that they weren't going to do it because it was under the temporary thing or whatever they call that. It's now fully approved. The Pfizer vaccine is fully approved by the FDA. There's no excuse not to get that vaccine any more than there's not an excuse to get mumps, measles, the shingles, lots of other vaccines that people get. There's no reason not to get this one any more than not to get all those others.
Exactly.
So
it's your choice.
It's still your choice.
We just think you should go get it. But anyway, we're getting off on a tangent.
And if you're not going to get it, don't make me wear a mask because you don't want to get it.
100%. And government don't tell me to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent. That's not what anybody wants to hear about.
We tend to do that whenever we talk at home.
Yeah, there you go. But let's talk about the game. Let's talk about the fact that the line is at 31.5. And actually, yesterday morning, they opened up a line that is plus 2,560 for the Gamecocks to win, which would mean if you bet $10, you win $256. Either one of those lines you taking?
No.
So you think Georgia's gonna cover the 31 point spread?
I don't have any idea, but I know that Georgia, unfortunately, this year might actually be a great team.
Yeah.
And so, the what's the thing?
Yeah. If you're a good team, good teams win, great teams cover.
Right. And Georgia might actually be a great team this year. I don't know, but it's just this is just a year that I'm just really hesitant. $10 is $10, but that'll buy me lunch at Hardee's.
Yeah, and we don't know. There's so many unknowns. The big talk on Thursday night, Shane Beamer's call-in show talked about Luke Doty doesn't have the soreness, so we don't know if Luke Doty's going to play.
But he might have it tomorrow.
That's what he said. Is that coaches speak? Is that
yes? I think so.
Is that what it is? But
I think they're just trying to keep Georgia thinking: is it Zeb? Is it Luke? But I guarantee you, they've got spies out there. They figured out. Luke.
They know.
Yeah,
I mean, they know what it is. I mean, Muschamp's probably still talking to people because
no question,
because that's the scenario. But it should be very interesting. But we were talking just a minute ago about how great a town Athens was.
Oh, incredible.
And I think a story that I think a lot of people would really like to be interested in, and a lot of people don't know is, and would have probably changed the trajectory of the Harrell family, is you got into Athens, you got into UGA, and you were going to UGA. So why don't you tell that story a little bit?
I was the first Harrell to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Because as we talk about regularly, Grandpa was an orphan from a mill village, pulled himself up by his bootstraps. First job was in Orangeburg.
And if you go back through generations, nobody went to college.
There.
So, I'm the first one. So when you say where I went could have affected where my brother and sister and my children
and I'm sure. I mean, the only place I really applied was South Carolina.
Okay,
LSU, but...
Anyway, so I'm the first one to go, and I'm looking around. I know that I want to do the same thing my father does for a living. I know that I want to be in the insurance business. So I applied to Carolina. I got accepted. But they didn't have an insurance major. So I started looking around for an insurance major. University of Georgia had one. So I applied to University of Georgia, and I got in. And I thought, okay, I'm going to Georgia because I want to get that major because that's what I want to do for a living.
Being an insurance guy.
Right, exactly. That's what I do for a living. So
it's your life.
I've been accepted to Georgia. I get a dorm assignment. I know where I'm going to live when I go to the Georgia campus. And something like, I don't know, less than a month before time to actually go off to Athens, I started thinking, I can't believe as an 18-year-old I had this clarity of mind. I started thinking, because my father was going to pay. Daddy said, your grandfather said he would pay for me to go anywhere in the 48 continental United States I wanted to go. So I'm sitting there thinking, why am I going to call?
Except College of Charleston or the Citadel, because
that's right.
he wanted you to go.
It had to be at least 100 miles from home. He wasn't picking on College of Charleston Citadel. He just said, his words were, quote, go grow up.
Go grow up.
That's what he told me, right?
Which is great logic.
I thought it was great logic. Anyway, so I'm about to go to Georgia. I'm about a month away from going, and I start thinking, like I said, as this 18-year-old, why in the world am I going to cause my father to pay so much more money just to send me another 100 miles that way?
Yeah.
I'll go to Carolina, and the folks at Carolina were telling me we're going to get an insurance major. But well, my sophomore year they did.
They did. So but I mean,
so I switched my major my sophomore year, graduated with what I wanted to graduate in, and went to Carolina. Then my sister went after me. My brother went after me. Both of my kids went.
It's looking like that's where Lucy
all of my brother's kids went.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Well, Lucy might be at an Ivy League school.
It might be, yeah. And Ford's going to win the Heisman Trophy at South Carolina, so that's all that matters.
Yale.
At Yale. Yeah. So, I think that's just such a crazy, interesting story, because when you think about how families can change and trajectories change, it's funny. And what's really funny is, I'll use that to segue into the next game. I know hate is a strong word because we don't like to use hate, yada, 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 but Clemson, right?
I don't hate Clemson.
You don't hate Clemson. We just strongly dislike.
I pulled for them when I was in office.
Yeah. He's winking, just letting you know.
I pulled for them when I was in office.
Winking. One of my favorite things, too, is when we were back when you were Speaker, I love how you say when we were in office, but when you were in office, but back when you were Speaker, we were fortunate enough to go stand on the sidelines at a Clemson game, and we just happened to stand on the Florida State. It was Clemson, Florida State. It was a Monday. It was that Labor Day game.
I'll tell you how that happened.
Yeah, we just happened to stand on the sideline. Yeah, go ahead and tell how it happened.
Because I was the speaker, a highway patrolman actually picked me up from the airport. I flew the little airplane I used to have.
You picked me. I was at the Carolina game.
Right.
You picked me up. Yeah,
that's right. Picked us up, and we went. And on the way to the game, the highway patrolman says, "I got a couple of sideline passes if y'all would like them." And we said, "Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, that'd be great." Yeah. He said, "Well, I'm all out of the Clemson sideline. All I got is Florida State." We said, "We don't care. Standing on the sideline, that'll be fun." Yeah.
It was fun. Especially next week when Fitz News wrote that wonderful article about it.
It was fun until I was standing on the sideline, and all of a sudden my cell phone lights up with all these text messages, variations of a theme of, "You can't be the speaker and stand next to Bobby Bowden." Apparently the camera shot was catty-cornered across the field from where we were, and it looked like I was like 5 feet standing behind Bobby Bowden, when in reality, he's up there coaching, and I'm way back here on the sideline off to the side.
We never even got to meet him.
But the depth perception was wrong, and so it looked like, never met him.
You're telling me the media read something wrong and got something wrong?
And I'm telling you, a whole bunch of my members of the House got something wrong, and we're ticked.
We're not happy. Right. But that's so funny. I love that story. But back to that, line on that game is 28.5. Clemson favored, obviously. I tell you, fun fact, before we dive in and we're going to pick this game, Clemson has won 29 straight consecutive home games. All right? It's a school record and the longest active streak in college football, right? Or FBS, in big boy college football. So
big boy college football.
I mean, I'm not Eastern Illinois.
Yeah.
Right?
I got
it. So the question is, even though Georgia Tech is no longer a triple option team, do you think they cover?
Yes, I do think Georgia Tech covers. I absolutely do.
Yeah. I mean, you think Georgia Tech covers? You think Clemson covers?
I think Georgia Tech covers.
You do. So you're picking. If you were a betting man, you'd pick Georgia Tech.
If I was a betting man, I would probably pick Georgia Tech with that number of points, and actually go back up to the Georgia game.
So you're just picking just the Peach State all the way around.
No, I'm not, because I'm actually going to pick. I'm going to say, okay, 31.5. All right, I'll go for it. I'm with the Gamecocks.
There you go. You're with the Gamecocks. I like it.
I can't pick against the Gamecocks.
And that's why I don't bet on the Gamecocks, because I don't bet because it's illegal. But if I was in Vegas and I was betting.
Which we actually have done.
Yeah, we have
win
done.
In Vegas.
Yeah, win in Vegas. Or Atlantic City now. So, and in other states, wherever. Yeah. But, I think that Clemson's offense is too powerful, and the athletes, they have SEC athletes, right? And Georgia Tech doesn't. So I think we're just in a scenario where it's just way too much for them. And I actually think Clemson covers.
And going back to the Georgia game, I know we're jumping back and forth here, but walking in here today, you said to me, both the Georgia's starting and backup quarterbacks are out for the game. And my response to you was, have you met Georgia's offensive and defensive lines?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's a very true statement.
But none of this is the biggest news in the SEC this week.
What is the biggest news in the SEC?
The biggest news in the SEC this week is Southwest Airlines is putting in a direct flight Charleston to Austin. So you and I are going to get to check that one off our bucket list and go watch Texas play.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think that is great. I think that Southwest, let's par away from football, we'll come right back. But I think that Southwest coming into South Carolina, which you were a big part of causing that to happen, I think is just been so great because we're getting these direct routes to these places where
it was awesome.
Where business, typically you get the direct route to DC and New York, and that works. But Charleston is growing as such a place for business and acting that we need other cities that are on a similar trajectory. And Austin is on that trajectory.
Austin is absolutely on that trajectory.
Nashville's on that trajectory, and you've got cities that are very similar that are getting back and forth like that.
I tell you too. Speaking of bringing them here. That's one of the really fun memories that I've got back from those days. I remember I was at, I think it was a baseball game, and Charlotte was a cheerleader. Yeah. And I'm sitting in the stands with your mom, and my phone rings, and the caller ID pops up, and it's the guy that I'd been negotiating with Southwest about coming to Charleston. And I looked at the phone, and you wouldn't know because you were out playing. But whenever you guys were playing games, I didn't answer the phone. I mean, and I'd answer. I'd call back people after the game. I'd text. When I'm watching my kids play, I'm watching my kids play.
Well, that was your escape. Us was your escape. Yeah,
no question. And it was y'all, and y'all are more important than anything else I've got going on. So anyway, but this pops up, and it's the guy who makes the decision. And I showed it to your mom, and I said, I really think I would probably go answer this one.
Take that call.
She said, I think you should. Yeah. And I went back behind the stands, and he said he just wanted to call me, let me be the first one to know they had decided to fly direct, start flying out of Charleston.
And that
was it was just I don't know who won the game. I'm sure Charlotte cheered fabulously, but that moment actually made that particular game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just those things that you were a part of bringing to South Carolina. Is just Boeing from Southwest. I mean,
JetBlue even.
All these other things have just been so great, and I've loved taking advantage of them fully. But
you enjoyed that way more when you were 21-ish and we'll just say 21-ish.
Look, I remember when you were negotiating with Southwest, and I remember we were at some conference when that was really going on, and we were in Dallas. And I remember talking to the Southwest guy, and it was coming, it was going to happen. We were getting pretty close to it at that point. And I remember saying to him, "Hey man, look, I know that the routes are looking like Charleston to Nashville, and can we just get a Charleston to Vegas? Can we please get a Charleston to Vegas?" And he politely, because I was the son of the speaker, "That's a good idea. Or that's an idea," his grandma would say.
For the record, we don't have a Charleston to Vegas Southwest flight.
My negotiation wasn't that well, but we're getting closer. Getting to Austin is there.
We're getting closer, and we fly way past it all the way. Yeah. No, actually, they don't. They fly Alaska Airlines. Well, no, there's Seattle.
Who is it? It's Darrell. It's Delta. So, but right. Alaskan, and so that just works as well. So, but anyway, back, we get off on tangents and have a grand old time.
Because it's too much fun when I'm doing this with you.
Yeah, and so let's talk about. We've talked about that. Are there any other football games that you really care to talk about? Nah. I don't really care. Yeah, let's move on to the biggest news in South Carolina, and the Murdaughs. And last week we touched on it. We finally mentioned something last week where we talked about, family and this is hard on the family, and we still believe that, and we still that, but it's at such an issue now. So many players are so involved, and players around the state are actively involved in it, and it's now involving a lot of state resources because they've opened up other investigations and whatnot. And
it is not going to end well for the family.
It is not, and I don't want to pile on, and I'm not trying to pile on, but I just feel that you and I, being people who talk about things that go on in this state, on our various platforms, it's just something that it's just time for us to talk about. That's what Amber told me. She said, it's time for you to talk about it, so talk about it. So, let's talk about it. The bond hearing was yesterday. As
a non-attorney person, I got to tell you, and I'll get you to explain why this is or isn't the case. But and setting aside how we feel about the family, because we both last time we talked about how much we hurt for the family, and it's tragic and it's horrible and it's not going to end well and all that. But setting
for the people who weren't involved in the bad stuff.
Yeah. Right. So set all those feelings aside for a minute. When they said $20,000 was the bond for Murdaugh, as a non-lawyer person, it sounded like Hampton County's at it still.
The home cooking.
The little home cooking, right. And then the guy who was trying to help him got, I forgot what his bond was. He got a huge number, a lot higher than that. It was, I'm trying to remember, $55,000 bail that he had to pay.
He did pull the trigger, so, but yeah.
He did, but he was hired to do that by the guy he pulled it on. But
allegedly, yeah.
Okay, well.
But let's do this. Before we dive into that, let's talk about it. What a bond hearing is
that's what I'm saying.
In the state of South Carolina.
Tell us why $20,000 was good or why it was home cooking.
Yep. Well, in the state of South Carolina, when you have bond hearings, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of bond hearings, and in the state of South Carolina, when you're having a bond, the only thing that matters is it's a two-pronged test when the judge sets the bond, and what that means is the judge listens to two sides of the argument. Well, obviously two sides of the argument, but 2 points, and then weighs all the facts around those 2 points. The 2 points are you a danger to the community, and are you a risk of flight, right? And the Constitution basically says that if you don't need to be kept in custody, you shouldn't be kept in custody, because let's be as bad as it looks in the press, let's remember that in the United States of America, you are innocent until proven guilty. So he has not been adjudicated guilty. He has not pled guilty. He has not been found guilty. He has not been adjudicated guilty. All right. With that being said, you take into account danger to the community and risk of flight. When you're looking at, let's take danger to the community first.
There's none.
Right. But you look at somebody's criminal history, and despite there may have been numerous crimes committed, he's never been charged and never even been charged with those crimes. That might be home cooking Hampton County, right?
Well, but that's no criminal history.
Yep. And let's talk about, and the other one is you look at risk of flight. Okay. Everybody knows who he is. Nobody's letting him get on a plane. They've taken his passport. So you're in a situation where he's allegedly not, and as you know, Dick Harpootlian is Dick Harpootlian. He made a very good point in the bond hearing. Alex Murdaugh is not a danger to the community. He's a danger to himself. That's what he said, because Alex Murdaugh didn't hire somebody. Well, we don't know this yet. I'm talking purely about the roadside shooting. He didn't hire somebody to shoot somebody else. He hired somebody to kill him. If in fact he did that. And so with that being said, he's not a danger to the community in that sense. Just like he's not a risk of flight because they've taken his passport. He's only allowed to go to this rehab facility, wherever it may be. And if he is to leave that rehab facility, the rehab facility is ordered to alert the court and SLED immediately. Okay, so with that being said, you should have the right to not be in custody until you're adjudicated guilty.
I completely agree with that.
Typically in these kind of cases, because remember what the charges are. He's not charged with murder. He's not charged with any of these other things that may or may not be around that are floating out there in the ether. He's charged with conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and a handful of other charges like that. So typically in that scenario, he gets people get PR bonds, which means they're personal recognizance, which means you don't have to you don't have to pay anything to get out. So a $20,000 bond, in my opinion, in this scenario, based on what I see, whether it's the right way or wrong way to do things, based on what I've seen and in my experience, hundreds if not thousands of bond hearings, $20,000 is a decent bond to put down.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah. Now, mind you, the $20,000 bond that you had to put down on that was a surety bond, which means you only have to come up with 10% of it. So that's another whole thing that we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to go into the bond.
But an insurance, that means he had to go buy a bond from somebody.
He had to go get a bond from somebody.
Who if he does try to escape, the company has to pay the other 90%, and then the company, they have to go find him to get their money back.
Yep.
So yes, I mean, so it's a legitimate $200,000 that's been put up. If that's in fact what you're saying, that
no, it's $20,000. But you're right. It's the money that's been put up. We don't need to parse the dollar.
Okay, that's fine.
But it is a legitimate thing that's up there, and it's actual money that's actually being there to hold it. So I don't think it's necessarily home cooking. I think it's right in line with what I've seen throughout my career. So
let's talk about the charges, because here's one of the issues I've got. I defer totally to you on the legal stuff. I do know insurance, and I read that Dick Harpootlian made some comment about he erroneously thought he had a suicide clause in his life insurance. And I tell you, a misnomer a lot of people have is that if they commit suicide, they can't collect their life insurance. I can't say all, but vast majority of insurance companies, every one I've ever seen, when they write a life insurance policy, it has a 2-year contestability period, and if you commit suicide in those first 2 years, then they don't have to pay. But as of after the 2 years, if you commit suicide, it's no different than if you got killed in a car wreck or shot by somebody else without having hired them or whatever. So the irony to me is, if he did, now I'm not so sure that what we've heard is accurate, but if he did in fact hire somebody to shoot him because he thought if he committed suicide, then Paul, his son, couldn't get the money, that was just dumb.
But it was Buster's the son who would have gotten the money.
I'm sorry. Right. You're exactly right.
But you're dead on. And
I almost didn't say the son's name, so I want to make sure I didn't do that.
But I think that we are in a scenario with what you're talking about with the life insurance, that's kind of the signal that either A, Dick Harpootlian misspoke, or B, what we're talking about is there's other things going on with that, because you're a lawyer who handles personal injury matters, and if you handle personal injury matters,
with his head all messed up at this moment,
that's
head really messed up. You don't know. You want to make sure your other son gets the money. I can see the thought process, but if you knew the business, you'd know that's not. If the policy's over 2 years old, that is probably not the case.
That's not the case. Yep.
Anyway,
and we've got about 2 minutes left, so let's real quick hop on, because we plugged at the beginning. Bob Woodward's book. We don't have time to get into the Nancy Pelosi call and the General Lee call. Quick question: should Mark Milley resign based on his conduct?
He should be investigated. I wouldn't say resign yet, because you need to. Just because we got a transcript of a phone call does not necessarily mean it happened. He needs to be investigated.
Real quick, because we've got a minute left. Real quick. How did that transcript get released? That is ridiculous.
That's a question that needs to be answered.
We need to have a hearing on that.
But if he did circumvent the election and basically make himself the head, then yes, he should be gone. Yep. But that investigation needs to happen and prove whether that happened or not.
Okay. All right. Shameless plug. I'm proud of my daughter. She started off the week with an issue at school where she was talking too much. Shocker, I know. And has corrected it, went from the yellow line to the blue line. I'm so proud of her. That's my shameless plug.
She is a rock star.
She is.
I'm proud of your mama, because your mama told me about this thing about marshmallows to catch raccoons. And last night, I finally caught one of the raccoons that's under our house. 1 down, 3 to go.
And you're going to have one of those. You're going to have a picture of that raccoon up on your Instagram at Speaker Harrell.
At SpeakerHarrell.com.
At Speaker Harrell.
Absolutely, I am.
You're going to have that up there.
The first of 4. I'm going to show him while he's still alive and well in the cage.
There you go. Well, we thank you as always for joining us. It's always a blast to do this. Dad, I love you.
Love you too, buddy. And love doing this with you.
Yep. Make sure you tune in next week. Yay! This is Attorney Trey Harrell. I've been dealing with insurance companies my entire life, whether it's working for them or fighting against them. So if you've been injured in an accident and the insurance company is giving you the runaround, don't delay. Call 636-TREY, or you can find us online at attorneyharrell.com.